Good morning. Glad that you could join us this morning to hear about the geology department at Baylor University. My name is Dr. Steve Dworkin, and I'm the undergraduate program director in the Geosciences department. I'd like to tell you about geosciences in general, and in particular, I'd like to tell you about all the wonderful things that are happening in geosciences in our department. So the Geosciences department at Baylor has quite a few faculty. And we had a couple of retirements over the last year, and so we're going to be doing some hires, but we generally have about 16 faculty. And our faculty teach most of the courses. We have one lecturer, but unlike a lot of other departments, our faculty teach all our courses. Our faculty really has a very broad knowledge and a lot of expertise in the geosciences. And it's really my pleasure to work with this group of scientists that are so accomplished and actually do a super job of teaching undergraduates. We have really good teaching and lab facilities. If you've never made it to the Baylor Science Building in Waco on Baylor campus, I hope you'll get the opportunity to come, because the Baylor Science Building is truly a remarkable building, both from the perspective of teaching, the teaching rooms, and the laboratory facilities, which I'm in love with. And I have 3 laboratories that I'm in charge of. I'm a geochemist, and it's really a nice facility. One of the nice things about the geoscience department at Baylor University is that we have a very caring and family atmosphere. We're a small department. We only have between 70 and 90 majors. And a lot of people will ask me, well, why should I go to Baylor to study geosciences, perhaps, rather than Texas A&M or University of Texas? I mean, those are really big departments, and they're really good. And I'm not going to diminish how good they are, but we simply provide more attention and more care to our students because we're smaller. In addition to the fact that we have a caring family atmosphere, there are also lots and lots of opportunities for the undergraduates to do research and to be mentored. And this is because we have a very thriving research program going on. We have a lot of graduate students, and the graduate students need help to do their research, and that's where we pull upon the undergraduates. We have a really good job in, we have a really good record in placing students in jobs, and a lot of our students go on to graduate studies. Most professional geoscientists go on and get a master's degree or a PhD, and we prepare our students in a really good way to be ready for graduate school and to work. Incidentally, as I go through this presentation, you're going to see a lot of pictures, and I took all these pictures in one of my favorite classes that I teach, which is our capstone course. It's a 5-week field course out in the Rocky Mountains where the students get to apply all the things that they've learned in their classes. And so in the upper right-hand corner, you can see the students are on a mapping project in Nevada. And in the bottom right-hand corner, the students are doing a water chemistry project in Yellowstone. Geology is a rigorous major, and our students will end up taking biology courses, chemistry classes, math classes, and physics. So it is an interesting discipline in that we pull from the other sciences, and then we use these other sciences to help us understand geology. The photos in this particular slide show the Waco Mammoth site in the upper right-hand corner and a big dinosaur footprint in the lower right-hand corner. And we have lots of dinosaur footprints in the rocks in central Texas. There are just a lot of areas in the geosciences, and I'll briefly mention them. I'm going to go through this list, and these are all areas that people end up working in. So geologists are involved in water. We're involved in environmental studies. We're really heavily involved in this interesting topic called paleoclimatology. Stratigraphy, tectonics, and structural geology all contribute to people who work in petroleum geology. Geomorphology is the study of the surface of the earth. Engineering geology is a large area that employs a lot of geologists, and it's a pretty technical area. We have a planetary geologist on our program, and a lot of students are really interested in the geology of other planets. In the upper right-hand corner of this list, you can see geophysics, and geophysics is one of the more technical areas of geology and requires a lot of math and physics. We have a geographer on our department. We have a lot of expertise in soils. We have two biogeochemists, and also the topic there of earth hazards. Geologists oftentimes are involved in helping to understand and predict natural hazards on this earth of ours. We have a paleontologist. I do paleoceanography. What did the oceans used to be like? We also do geoarchaeology, and a real technical area is numerical modeling, which applies to most of these areas. So why study at Baylor University? Once again, I already mentioned to you that we're a small department and we give a lot of attention to our students, but we're also a very field-oriented department. Geologists have to take all the other sciences and use them to understand processes on the earth, but we have to be comfortable out in the field. And so therefore we have the resources to provide high quality field education. And you can see in that photo in the upper left right there, there's the geology field trip once again that I lead every summer. That's at White Sands, New Mexico, where we're studying geological processes related to wind, and those are mostly sand dunes. And a little tongue in cheek, we know how to pick really good campsites, because this class that the students go on when they're seniors is a 5-week car camping trip. So we stay out in the field and we camp, and which is very, very realistic for geologists. Geologists oftentimes don't have hotels nearby to go to. We work in a lot of remote places. We're really good at helping students figure out what area of the geosciences that they want to be in. And lastly, on the lower right-hand corner, you can see a picture of the Baylor Science Building with the Student Life Center to the left. And I just cannot tell you what a wonderful facility this is, both for teaching and for research. We have a lot of really cutting-edge analytical equipment in our department. And so let me just tell you briefly about some of them. We have mass spectrometers, as you can see on the right. For doing stable isotope work. We have the ability to do a lot of organic geochemistry. We have instrumentation for doing that. We have a paleomagnetics lab, which helps us to date the age of rocks. We have a geoluminescence lab, which is really uncommon, actually. We're one of the very few departments in the United States that has a geoluminescence lab, and that is good for dating rocks and dating their ages. We have seismology equipment. We have equipment for studying water projects, hydrologic projects. We have an applied petroleum geology laboratory exclusively devoted to petroleum geology. We have a soils lab, and we have lots and lots of computers for numeric modeling of porous fluid flow. And geologists are heavily involved in how fluids travel through rocks. As I already mentioned, there's lots of research opportunities for students in our department. And most of our faculty, excuse me, all of our faculties, in fact, are involved in research. They have graduate students who are heavily involved in research, and research takes a lot of work. And therefore, we're always looking for undergraduates to help out with this work. Is it a little tedious sometimes for the undergraduates to do this work? Well, yes, but everybody has to pay their dues at some time. And I definitely remember being involved in laboratories when I was an undergraduate and even as a master's student, and doing lots and lots of geochemical analyses. Many students are pursuing senior theses, and we encourage our students to do senior theses, and which involves not just therefore helping out a graduate student or a professor in a tedious task, but rather to take the data then to think about it and interpret it. So I highly encourage our students to do senior theses. And I emphasize, and many of our students emphasize, going out into the field and gathering data about rocks, because that's what geology is all about. And so my last slide talks about employment. As I've already mentioned, most of our undergraduates pursue a master's degree. However, I have been really pleased with how many of our undergraduates recently have been getting jobs. And there's an uptick right now in the availability of jobs for geologists. And I'll just summarize those last 4 bullet points. The areas that geologists primarily work in are water, which is hydrogeology, petroleum geology, and with the rising price of oil and gas right now, the hiring at oil companies is really looking up, and it's starting to increase. We also are involved in an area called economic geology, which is an area where we look for precious metals, and metals are so important in this world of ours. And then lastly, some of our students go on to become involved in mitigating natural hazards and trying to do earthquake prediction and volcano prediction. And so with that, that's the end of my presentation about geosciences and the geology department at Baylor, and I would be happy to try to answer any questions that anyone has. Okay, I see something in the chat. Let's see. Oh, okay. No one's put anything in the chat yet. If anyone has any questions about geology in general or about the geosciences program at Baylor, I'd be happy to answer.
Hey, Dr. Dworkin, do you mind if I add something to this presentation?
Sure, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Anna Lesko, and I'm a PhD student at Baylor. And I just wanted to say that the geology program is really awesome. And I would say that it's a wonderful place to really learn because everybody's super supportive. I've been at a couple universities, and I would say Baylor's probably one of the most friendliest universities that I've been at, and people are incredibly helpful, especially if you have questions. So it's a great place to learn, and it's a safe place to learn. But I would say that even if you are interested in majoring in geology, but you're worried about finding a job afterwards, or even if you want to go on to something else, but you'd like to major in geology, that's actually something that happens a lot and that I feel like undergrads don't realize. For example, you can major in geology, but still go to med school if you wanted, because you take so many of the science courses that you still could qualify. And in fact, they really look for students that aren't your stereotypical bio students, because that's kind of the pipeline. So you would end up setting yourself apart. You could also go on to law school and look at environmental law or environmental policy. So it's interesting because you can become quite creative with the major and still have fun. I think one of the best parts about geology is being able to go on the field trips. So I just wanted to put that out there in case you have other interests as well, and you wanted to see if somehow you can kind of combine all of them.
Well, thanks, Anna, for that comment. And Anna is actually a really good example of opportunities that are available for our students to become involved in. Anna has a internship this summer in Alaska, and she's going to be studying frozen soils, which is a really interesting topic. And we're kind of really worried about frozen soils right now because a lot of them are becoming unfrozen because the climate's warming so much. There's an emphasis back on climate change, which geologists are heavily involved in. And Anna, I'm going to be really interested to see how your internship goes this summer. I'm really excited for you.
Nobody has any questions? Please don't be shy. Dr. Dworkin, could you elaborate a little bit more on some of the type of internships that some of the grad students have gotten in the past? And I can help out if you
go
can't
ahead.
Remember.
If you are familiar with some of the things that the students have been doing in the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so like I said, one of the nice parts about being a student at Baylor is all the grad students are really nice, and even the undergrads, we've had a little bit a lot of interaction with them, but we kind of support each other and we chit chat all the time. And so I know that in geoscience or geophysics, there's a student that has gotten several NASA internships. And in fact, the professor that does geophysics or looks at planetary stuff, his students end up getting really awesome internships, and they do really cool work. And I know that he has good connections with UT Austin. And so just kind of segueing or diverging a little off of the internship idea, another important thing is when you are doing undergrad, and no matter whether you want to go on to higher education or if you want to get a job, it's important that your professors have connections. And so, for example, the geophysics professor has good connections to UT Austin and other collaborations. And so his students have gotten some really cool opportunities. I know that, let's see here, Bart is another grad student. He does kind of geochemical work, but is also petroleum science. And he ended up getting an internship with DOE, the Department of Energy. And that was a really cool internship. Claudia, she's a master's student. She's gotten her master's degree paid for by doing an internship through a company in Texas. And so yeah, it's really cool to see that Baylor students have the opportunity to do internships. And I know that in undergrad, like, you get kind of confused, you don't know exactly what you're doing, where to look. And the nice part is you have grad students and professors who are willing to help you.
Yeah, there's lots of opportunity. And, I noticed that I skipped over this slide in the presentation, and I'd like to just talk about it briefly. We have changed our degree plan this year, and we've tried to make it more up to date. And it turns out that we have offered now a bunch of concentrations in geosciences. And I didn't mention this, but here are the concentrations that our students who get a Bachelor of Science degree in geology can get a concentration in biogeoscience and paleontology. So those people would take a little bit more biology than other students. They can do a concentration in climate change and how climate change is affecting society. And those courses actually are exclusive to our department. Those don't require you to go out into other departments. We have a geochemistry concentration, which requires the students to take more chemistry from the chemistry department. I've already mentioned the geophysics area and the geophysics concentration. The students take lots of math and lots of physics. Incidentally, the geophysicists are probably the most highly sought after of all the geologists. We have a hydrogeoscience concentration, which is for people who are interested in surface or groundwater. A lot of geologists go on into the petroleum industry, and we have a petroleum geoscience concentration. And then lastly, we also have a planetary geoscience concentration. I didn't mention the BA that we have in Earth Sciences. So that's in addition to the BS with those concentrations I just listed. The BA, the Bachelor of Arts in Earth Sciences, is primarily for people who are interested to go on to teach earth science in the primary or secondary schools, which I think is a marvelous endeavor. And I highly encourage those people. And we actually have quite a few people who do get the BA. Actually, I see something in the chat box. Let me see if someone asked something.
No, I think it's just comments.
Okay.
Another cool thing is we do a lot of field trips, which I don't know, that's like my favorite part, the best part. And so as undergrads, you get the opportunity to explore a lot of places and get really hands-on. So I just want to apologize if you hear a lot of background noise in my microphone right now. It's because I'm actually at a Starbucks in Arkansas because we're on a field trip. And those field trips do include undergrads. So we do have undergrads with us. And right now we're checking out Hot Springs National Park and staying at Lake Catherine State Park. And it's a lot of fun. We're just camping, learning. We have the paleontology professor that came with us, and so we're going to stop and collect rocks and minerals. And it's honestly it's a lot of fun, and you get to know the students, which is great. It's a great community. So Arkansas is definitely a place we like to go to. Trying to think what other field trips. I know that some field trips will go to Enchanted Rock in Texas. And it's really the nice part about Baylor is right now the undergrad class is small, so there's a lot of opportunity to go and do field work with the graduate students. So for example, I took an undergrad out to Big Bend National Park with me, and we did field work out there. And I know that some undergrads have been able to do field work out in the San Juan Basin in New Mexico. And so there's just ample, like there's just so much opportunity to get out and to be hands-on and to learn geology and learn about earth processes. And personally, that's my favorite part. And again, if you have any questions, please don't be shy. We can answer anything, any concerns you might have, or really any questions.
Anna, have you found any fossils yet on this trip that you're on?
No, because we got in kind of late last night. Okay. And we just set up camp and made a fire and started cooking. And then this morning, it's really nice. This trip, so depending on who's running the trip and how many students are on it, will determine how rigorous the schedule has to be or how strict the schedule has to be. And because I think we only have about 8 people on this trip, which is quite small, it's been really relaxed. So we took our time getting up this morning, made breakfast, and I think we're going to be checking out fossils on our way back home tomorrow. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting part of the world. I've been to hot springs before.
Yeah, it's beautiful out here. Dr. Dworkin, would you mind talking a little bit about field camp and how it's required at most universities and the fact that Baylor in the past has funded it for undergrads?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my favorite class that I teach is our capstone course called Field Geology, our field geology course. And almost all the pictures that I've shown are pictures of the students involved in the field camp. For example, on this particular slide that I'm showing in the upper right hand, you can see a bunch of students on a bunch of pretty steeply dipping rocks. And that's at Glacier Park in Montana. And the picture below is a bunch of students trying to get out of the sun after a real hard day of geologic mapping in Dinosaur National Monument in Utah. We are very, very lucky because our field course, which, as Anna mentioned, is required for almost every geology major in the United States who gets a degree in geology, is endowed. And what that means is that even though the course is actually a lot of hours, and as a result, a lot of tuition hours equal a lot of money, that because of the endowment on this class, all the students get their tuition and their fees, their food, and their lodging paid for. And so what turns out to be a really good educational experience also turns into a really good opportunity not to have to spend a lot of money on a course that is offered in the summer. And in the summer, there's really no opportunity for students to get student loans. And so that makes it, in the past, it's made it hard, but because of the endowment that we've received, this course now is at no cost to the students, which is absolutely wonderful. And let me see if I've got some more pictures. In the upper, picture in the upper center of the field of view there, you can see a student who's measuring section. He's got a Jacob staff in his hand. And so we use that to measure the thickness of rocks. And that's at Dinosaur National Monument in Utah once again. And the students in the lower right picture right there are working on a mapping project. And I think that is in Cloudcroft, New Mexico, where they do a mapping project. So they go out in the field, they collect the data, and then they analyze the data and write up their projects. So let's see, I'll show you some more pictures. Oh, this picture in the center of this slide right here is on the trail in the Grand Canyon. And that's one of my favorite places. And incidentally, I'll show you, this is also on the trail in the Grand Canyon right here. And that's a pretty rigorous exercise where we tromp down. We don't go all the way to the bottom of the Grand Canyon, but we get all the way down to the base of the Paleozoic, which is the part of the section that's really well known. And really interesting project, and exposes students to a very famous geological section.
Okay, Dr. Dworkin, we do have some questions in the Q&A. So if you don't mind, I'll probably go through them.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the questions is, would you recommend getting a master's in geoscience? It really depends on what you want to do. I know if you want to go into petroleum sciences, you're most likely going to need a master's degree. If you want to go into like environmental consulting, you don't necessarily need a master's degree. So I recommend it because like I think it's a really good experience, and it's typically master's degrees. Not only do you get free tuition, but you get a paid stipend. So you're essentially getting paid to go to school, and I think that's a great opportunity. But it's
Anna,
not.
let me interject for a second. That's really the working degree for a geologist, is a master's. And so that's why we really recommend people to get a master's.
Okay. And then another question is my future, well, it's more of a statement. My future interest is paleontology. So if you were to go to Baylor and you wanted to have a focus in paleontology, that's great. You'd most likely work with Liz Petzios, and she is one of my favorite faculty members. She's really kind, really nice, full of knowledge, has really good connections, and her lab has actually a lot of opportunity for undergrads to get experience in working in a paleontology lab. And I know that some of her students, well, she has one student, the first student that she has been able to graduate, because she's fairly new, went on to Oxford. So, you know, she has good connections. So I definitely think that getting a master's degree, or sorry, looking at paleontology at Baylor is a great idea.
Okay, and there's also another question.
I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, we are at time for this session. So if you didn't get your question answered, please feel free to reach out to us at admissions@baylor.edu, and we'll get you connected with our Geosciences department. Otherwise, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Anna and Dr. Dworkin, for joining us on this session, and I hope that y'all take care.
Bye-bye.